Welcome to the Pulse Healthcare. This is Dr. John McCormick, and today we're going to talk a little bit about pharmacy, one of my least favorite subjects when we're talking about healthcare in general. And just to kind of put it in perspective, estimated here in 2023, we're going to have a $655 billion with a B industry in RX. And that's just mind boggling. You know, America is one of the biggest utilizers of pharmaceutical drugs. On average, Americans are on 2 to 4 prescriptions, and then the further we get in life, the more prescriptions we get on. If you compare us to other countries, Asian countries and things like that, they're on 0 to 1. So not only do we have a healthcare system that instead of treating you to make you well, what they do is they're masking your symptoms. So we're in this sick care cycle that we're trying to overcome through pharmaceutical expense. And now we have major insurance companies that are owned by pharmaceutical companies that are owned by hospitals or own hospitals in turn. So you almost have a closed system, I hate to say, of profiteering. So there, if you step back and think, I'm dealing with a public company who tells me their priority is their shareholders and to make money. And I'm going to them to get well. What are my odds that they're looking to make me well inside of that closed loop system where they make money when I go to the doctor, they make money when I go to the hospital, and they make money on every single prescription that they give me? I think my odds are low. What do you think, Chad?
Yeah, I think it's hard to evaluate the system in such a way that it's here for the people, right? Anytime you have a for-profit system, like you stated, it tends to be a little disingenuous. I mean, we see these medications that can range from the generic for $10 on your basic insurance or $5 copay even, and then you go into the brand and look how nice their commercial is, right? And so they have a bunch of people running on the beach and hanging out with their family. And wouldn't you like to run on the beach and hang out with your family? And all you have to do is pay $10,000 instead of $5.
It's literally amazing. And the EpiPen story, I mean, a lot of people know about the EpiPen story. It came on the market. It was under $100. It was a life-saving deal. And suddenly it went from 100 to 200 to 300 to 400 to 500 to 600. Nothing changed, just profiteering, and when they were confronted about it, it's like, well, everybody else does it, and I think about what we're trying to do every day, because we're up against $1 billion worth of advertising. If you look at the budgets for the big pharma, Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, if you go back when I was a kid and you were watching TV, you had food products and things like that, commercials and things like that. Now, if you watch anything, nightly news brought to you by Pfizer.
Yeah.
What?
Dupixent. Get it today. Yeah. Like anyone can just get Dupixent today.
Yeah. I mean, you could be watching, SpongeBob SquarePants and it's brought to you by Merrick,
Yeah.
And they readily admit they actually spend more money on advertising than they do on the research and development of the pharmaceutical to begin with. So what's the real motive? Is the real motive R&D, bring a break product to market, actually help us save lives, or rushing a product to market like we've seen with some of these new drugs, and then using them off brand like we've seen with these new, especially like Ozempic and Wegovy and things like that are just the detrimental effects of those being used off label. There's a new report every week of somebody getting violently ill from that, and God knows what
paralysis.
Paralysis. I don't even want to describe the gastrointestinal studies that are going on for people using that off-brand, and yet there we are, and it's and we got people paying hugely costly things, and then people that actually need it, they can't get it. It's not available. So there's this really big disconnect on the pharmaceutical side between what's a life-saving drug and who actually needs it, what's a drug that's available that's being used wrong, and then, as you pointed out, there's a whole range of generics and biosimilars that are extraordinarily cheap, but they don't have the billion-dollar commercial.
Yeah.
And then we as a health plan, when we go back and say, yeah, I understand that that's what you saw on TV and you got a skin rash, but that pill they want to give you only will destroy your liver if you read it, right? But we do have some biosimilars and some other generic safer drugs that'll do the same thing. I gotta have the brand name, and that's how we've conditioned ourselves, And I say it often. So many times people, when they engage in healthcare, regardless of what phase, it's almost like we turn off our really smart consumer brain and we just shut it down. And we go with what did the commercial say, or what makes me think, they made me feel good by seeing somebody ride a horse down the beach.
So I have a really cool story of one of our members that they were diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, and they were getting infusion therapy, and then they switched health plans, right? So they come to us and request a different infusion therapy, but nonetheless another infusion therapy that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we request medical records, and upon reviewing the medical records, they now have drug-induced lupus from the previous infusion therapy that they were taking. But they want to try this new one, another new one that's on the market, because I don't know, they want to try to collect all of these autoimmune diseases from the drug. I can't wrap my head around it. At what point do you draw the line and try something, an alternative, where you keep doing these infusion therapies that they're not, like you said, they aren't, they're not putting the money into the testing. And
so I'm going to share a personal story, and since this is going out to the public, do not try this at home. All right. Please do things with your doctor's recommendation or at least consultation. But back in April this year, I was a stern 190 pounds at my little 5'8" height. And so I was pretty roly-poly for my size. And I was on some pharmaceuticals for prediabetes and cholesterol and high blood pressure. And, I came out of 22 years in the military, fit as a fiddle, but when I got out, I forgot to do something. I forgot to change my eating habits and things like that when I changed my physical habits. So I went from going 16 hours a day and burning 4,000 calories, and eating whatever I wanted, to going about half that amount of time, burning about a fourth of those calories, and still eating the same kind of food. And so I developed all the things you develop with that kind of stuff: high blood pressure, high cholesterol. I got pre-diabetic. I got GERD, so I had upset stomach all the time. And it was one pharmaceutical after another. And finally, in consultation with my sister, who happens to be a doctor of Chinese medicine, replaced all of that with natural supplements. Now, let me tell you the immediate effect of that. Now, sitting here in August, I am 33 pounds lighter. I feel great. My eyesight actually has improved. My skin condition has improved. I am still working with a Western medicine doctor. I'm getting my blood checked. I'm consulting with them routinely to make sure things get back into great homeostasis. But I think, I'm in this business, and I got wrapped up in the RX piece because that's the easy thing to do.
Yeah.
And sometimes, we need to, and for people working with us in our plan, we're going to give you the medicine that you need, all right? We're going to walk you through the steps. We're going to give you the options. We want to make sure that you get the right pharmaceutical for what you need, but we're also going to help you explore all of the options on the table, because honestly, I don't think people ought to be like me. It took me, I'm 60 years old. I had to wake up at 60. It took me 15 years to wake up, when I started getting on these drugs. And I, And every year I'm getting my blood checked. Did my liver collapse? Did my kidneys collapse? And I'm thinking, I'm checking all these things because I'm taking pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
I need to get off of those. How do I do it? And it was, pretty simple. Change in diet, change in nutrition, continue to monitor.
Yeah, so to share my, I'm not on any pharmaceutical medications. I'm actually allergic to every single one I've ever taken. Um, but I do like to look at market and market research, and then I'm also very a man of science. And sometime in the mid 2000s, a article had come out. It was from a UK doctor. Can't quote his name for the life of me because he's also Indian. But he had he had released an article that was basically it was titled "You Can Eat Butter," and it was a really scathing. It was a huge deal in the mid 2000s. I mean, here's this article saying that I can have bacon, I can have butter, and basically nobody needs to. They had found through their research and proper scientific procedure and method that statins were largely being overprescribed, and that only people with genetically high cholesterol were actually at risk of major cholesterol issues, the complications that come with that. And just having high cholesterol didn't mean necessarily correlate. This drug was actually more detrimental. And so here's this actually peer-reviewed paper. The science is there, and statins, even today, 15 years later, is still billions of dollars.
Well, and they're mandated.
Industry. Yeah.
They're mandated. If you're on Medicare or Medicaid, that's one of the big check marks. That if the doctor doesn't prescribe you a statin when you have high cholesterol, then they get a bad mark, and their reimbursement goes down.
Yes.
So we're monetarily incentivizing doctors to overprescribe medicines when they may not be needed because the quote unquote insurance agent, the insurance companies mandate it. And the federal government mandates it. Not that it's good for you,
Yeah.
And we have thousands of doctors that we work with, and this is one of those hard discussions that we have to have. Like, well, the federal government says if you don't, then, they're going to reduce your payment from 100% to 80%.
Yeah.
Well, so now I'm going to lose money because I'm doing the right thing for my patient. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, so the famous end of that story is that doctor basically went into work. He had finally was in one of the most prestigious hospitals in the UK, and he goes into work and everyone's clapping his peer reviewed paper and it's telling him it's amazing, until he got brought into the hospital director's office, in which he was fired.
Yeah.
He was told that he never should have released that paper, that it was extremely damaging to the industry. How could you possibly tell our patients that when we've been prescribing statins for years? You've made the hospital look bad, and that's what you're working against, right? It wasn't for you. He had actually done the science and done everything correctly, and here we are in this industry that says, but we were making money, right? So,
well, it reminds me of that saying. I went looking for the science and I couldn't find it, and I went looking for the money and I found the science.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what that's what we see. So, obviously, I'm not anti medicine. I think there's a time and a place for it, and there's a right level for those kind of things, and we want to look at those things critically, right? So I'm going to transition this just for a minute. I want to transition the conversation about some of the things that we do at Ovation Health to help do that. So I hate to say we're like every other health plan because God forbid we're not. We do want to explore all the alternatives. So we do want to explore biosimilars and things like that. We don't think anybody should be paying thousands of dollars a month, for the rest of their life, when there's other options, lifestyle changes, or even different mechanisms to get the same or similar drug through a different venue. Just like we overutilize medicine in the U.S., we also overcharge for it. So fortunately, we do have some options. We use FQACs, federally qualified health clinics, which can give us some pretty significant discounts on some of the drugs. And then we can also use international sourcing. I'm going to let Mandy talk a little bit about international sourcing, but it hurts my heart to think that we have to go to Mexico or Canada or the Netherlands, is it?
Yeah,
New
we don't go to
Zealand.
Mexico.
Yeah.
Well, I know you.
We do not get our drugs from Mexico.
I know you. I know you can.
Yeah.
I don't think we do. but-
Canada and New Zealand. largely.
Canada and New Zealand. Okay.
Australia, yeah.
Australia. Yeah. So to get a drug that costs $6,000 here for $800,
Right.
you know, we have to ship it around the planet to get a discount. What's that about?
We have no idea. We just know that we can. So we've got this company that we work with more than most, and they actually work directly with the members, right? So there's no middleman. They steer the person, and they do 90-day supplies, right? So I think that cuts out a lot of expense right off the top. Not having the middlemen and the pharmacies and the providers and all of the people that interfere. So you go through this international outsourcing, and they look for the medications from countries that are, there's 5 of them, I believe.
So the main part of it is that the markets in those countries are competitive, because in the U.S. you can patent medication, and they don't have that same problem there. So the prices need to be competitive, and then you just pay their prices to get it here.
But what was the reasoning? I remember Casey talking to us about they only actually outsourced from those 5 countries, and I don't remember what her reasoning was. It had something to do with like the safety measures, like
certified labs,
regulations, and yeah.
And the healthcare in those countries, right? We're talking about Canada, Australia, New Zealand. I mean, it's places that actually tend to care about the healthcare.
So I mean, you could really talk about pharmaceuticals and the pharmaceutical industry for a week and not even scratch the surface of
No, not at
all the things that are wrong with it. But
well, just to add to that, so we also do. We'll help members sign up for manufacturer discounts and rebates, right, as well as copay cards from these manufacturers, and it can get the medication down to essentially what they would pay for the international outsourcing. So how is it that they can sell to some people who actually put forth the effort and apply for the help, financial assistance through the manufacturer? They'll allow them to buy this drug for $50 or $60, even though they're selling it to everyone, and it's supposedly $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. I mean, so how is it that they offer this financial assistance? It's all bogus.
I mean, I guess that's part of why we keep our patient advocates in business, right? What we do, my 2 of my patient advocates here, But that's another thing that pains me, that we in America have created hurdles to being able to get the best care. So if you don't have an advocate, like we have at Ovation, or if you're just out there in the wilderness by yourself, it can be really challenging and in some cases almost insurmountable to be able to get the prescription that you need. And I say need in quotes, because I do honestly think that, everyone should not only work with their provider, but, in our case, work with your carrier. I mean, we have a vast amount of experience across thousands of people, and we're going to bring all of that knowledge to you because, sometimes your doctor doesn't have the best way. We might have a better way because we've gone through it before, kind of like the Allstate commercial. We know a lot because we've seen a lot.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot, and we know that sometimes there are better ways to do it that make not only financial sense but also make great medical sense.
Yeah, and I think a little bit goes back to when we were talking about telemedicine, right? So we actually provide access to nutritionists and that type of care through one of the services that's just attached to our plan.
Yeah, like chronic care management.
Yeah, absolutely. And these are the types of things you can pursue. I mean, there's tons of just amazing nutritionists out there that have extremely high success rates with their patients, and you can explore that avenue before you go, hey, let me try to get some Ozempic, which is largely out of stock, and honestly, I should be saving for the people that are confirmed type 2 diabetes.
Well, what you should say, too, you can add that these nutritionists, that they have cure rates, not treatment. These are cures.
Yeah, we're right back to well care, right?
Yeah.
I would rather be off meds and healthy because I've chosen to eat right than on meds because I can't control what I put in my mouth.
Right.
You know,
Absolutely.
and you know, as a military guy for 22 years, you know, it's not like I sprang out of bed and went, I want to go to the gym or run 5 miles. You know, there's a reason we did that in teams because we held each other accountable, right? You know, that's why when anybody tells me I'm going to go sign up for the gym, I go get a buddy, all right? Because unless you're just a gym rat, you need somebody to hold you accountable to say, you know what, let's go to the gym. Oh, I don't want to go today. Let's go. Because, you know, 2 weeks later, you're the one. Let's go to the gym. You know, same thing. Having a nutritionist and having that as part of our plan, I think is a huge value add because they hold you accountable. You know, hey, did you weigh in? Are you eating the right foods? And I'm not talking about celery and carrots, all right? I mean, there's a broad range of foods that you can eat that are healthy and normal, and it's not like, you know, cutting out ice cream and cutting out pizza. It may be have one slice and not six, you know, or something like that. But it's about finding balance, and
Yeah.
we find that the nutritionists help do that.
In my experience working with in patient advocacy with people when I have dealt with medications, they're often I do get a lot of people that have evaluated the risks um, in terms of the side effects, but I often have never gotten anybody that has considered the alternatives, right?
Right.
So they some people come forward with knowledge of like, hey, I understand that these are the risks or the side effects, or I would rather go on this because these are the risks and the side effects of A versus B. But oftentimes, I mean, there's a complete workaround.
Yeah, when you could say, yeah, well, you know, if you just took magnesium and turmeric and
Vitamin B
and cranberry and drink some cranberry juice, you'd cure your UTI. You know, your leg cramps would go away. You know, so there's, but that's not what doctors and pharmacies are in the business to do. They're not in that business.
To cure.
But that's what, you know, that's part of our business model, and I think maybe that's yet another 1 degree of separation that we might have. That we certainly are advocates of natural paths and natural cures and things like that, where there's no side effects, and you know it's actually working with your own body to bring yourself into homeostasis.
Yep.
Anyway, great talk about pharmacy. We'll certainly springboard on to another subject here in a couple of weeks. I don't know what that's going to be yet.
Oh, but there's so many.
There's it's a cherry pick. We may do email or caller questions. So if you're listening to us and you have some questions, make sure that you email us or you can call in and say, hey, I have a question for the next podcast, and we'll jump right on it and answer it.
Absolutely.
Mandy,
What's that email?
what's that email? What's the email? Chad.
Well, I have to provide the email.
It's like, let's throw them an email. How
I
are
was
they going
supposed
to
to
email
have
us?
the email. Oh, okay.
Membership?
That is no. It's communications with an S at innovations INNOVATION S as in Sam HR.com. So communications at innovationshr.com, or you can give us a call. You can go to ovation.health to find all
Awesome.
the relevant contact info.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.